The Last Battle, and the Mask. She took. The battlefield was quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the heavy kind that came after death. Smoke still rose from broken machines, and the air smelled like fire, metal, and sorrow. Captain Alira stood in the middle of it all, breathing slowly, her armor cracked, her hands shaking. In her left hand, she held a mask. It was smooth, silver, and shaped like the cold face of General Kor, the most feared enemy the human colonies had ever known. It was stained with ash and blood. "He's gone," whispered one of her soldiers, limping up behind her. "We did. General Kor is dead." Alira didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the mask. Just hours ago, this very man, no, this creature, had stood before her, his voice filled with rage and power. Now all that remained was the mask he wore, like a god, a symbol of terror. She had struck him down herself, in the heart of the ancient ruins beneath the cracked sky they had fought. He was fast, strong, inhuman. But she had been desperate, and her blade had found its mark. He had fallen. His soldiers had run. The war was over, they said. "Bring the ship," she finally said. "We carry this back." 3 days later, Alira stood at the front of the victory parade. Across the colonies, news spread that Earth's greatest enemy had been destroyed. Cities lit up with fireworks. People danced in the streets. And Alira, the hero of the resistance, wore General Kor's mask on her shoulder, tied by a red cloth. Children ran beside her convoy, shouting her name. Old veterans saluted. The crowds reached out to touch her hand. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Inside, she was not at peace. Kor's final words still echoed in her memory. He had said something strange as he fell. Words she couldn't forget. "You've seen only one side." What did he mean by that? Was it just a trick? A final attempt to make her doubt? She tried to push the thoughts away. She had done her duty. The resistance had won. Humanity was free from the Varkari Empire, or what remained of it. And Kor, the cruel warlord, the face of their suffering, was dead. Still, that night, as she placed the mask on her table and sat in silence, she felt watched. The lights flickered, a cold wind blew through her room though the windows were sealed, and then she heard it, a whisper. Soft, distant, but clear. "You wear my face like a trophy, Captain." Alira froze. "But I am not dead." Her blood turned cold. She grabbed. Her blaster aimed it around the room. Nothing. No one. She ran to the window. Outside, only darkness and the faint hum of power grids. The streets were empty. Was it a dream? Was her mind playing tricks? She turned slowly to face the table. The mask was gone. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Her fingers trembled as she searched the room. But the mask, the same mask she had taken from Kor's broken body, was not there. And just when she stepped back, heart pounding, the lights in her room dimmed again. A shadow passed over the wall. A voice, stronger now, filled the space. "You think the war is over, but you never saw the real enemy." Alira's hand tightened on her weapon. Her voice was low. "Show yourself." No answer. Just silence. And then a low chuckle. "Soon," the voice said, "you will know." And then, like smoke in the wind, the presence was gone. Alira stood alone, the chill still in her bones. Outside, the celebrations continued. Music played. People laughed. But inside that room, one thing was clear. General Kor was not finished. The voice in the dark and the shadow that followed. Captain Alira didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of her room, staring at the empty space where the mask used to be. The celebration outside continued for hours, fireworks, music, speeches. But inside, only silence remained. Every time the lights flickered, her fingers gripped the blaster tighter. Her mind was racing. Was it real? Was General Kor truly alive? The resistance had found no body. They assumed it was buried under rubble during the final explosion. But now she wasn't sure. The voice she heard, it wasn't a memory. It was clear, strong, and full of warning. The next morning she went to command. Her officers greeted her with smiles and cheers. They handed her medals, offered her handshakes. She nodded politely but said little. Her mind was elsewhere. Commander Rain, her closest ally during the war, noticed something was off. "Alira," he said, pulling her aside. "You're acting strange. Talk to me." She hesitated. Should she tell him? Would he believe her? Finally, she said, "I heard Kor's voice last night and the mask is gone." Rain blinked. "The mask? Maybe someone took it. As a souvenir?" "No," she said firmly. "It disappeared, and I wasn't alone in that room. Something was there." He studied her, trying to read her face. "You think he's alive?" "I think there's something we don't understand yet." He sighed. "We've all lost people, Alira. This isn't about grief," she snapped. "This is about truth. Something isn't right." Later that day, Alira locked herself in the base's data room. She began searching for anything: battle records, satellite scans, secret files that might prove Kor's survival. Most files were clean. Too clean. Entire sections of data from the last battle were missing. As she dug deeper, a strange signal pinged her console. Encrypted. Not from the Resistance network. The code was old, unfamiliar, yet somehow it felt personal. She entered a decoding sequence. Slowly, words appeared. "You only saw the weapon, not the hand that guided it." Alira leaned closer. "Come to the ruins. Come alone. If you want to know what really happened." She stared at the message. It had no signature, but she knew. This had to be Kor, or someone pretending to be him. She downloaded the coordinates and erased the trace. She didn't inform anyone. Not Rain, not her team. Just packed a small bag, wore her old stealth armor, and left the base at nightfall. The ruins of the final battle were still smoldering in some areas. The land was blackened, lifeless. The sky above held faint auroras, scars left by energy weapons. Her boots crunched over broken metal, glass, and bones. She walked for nearly an hour before she reached a cracked stone tower, half standing, half crumbled. The air was still. Too still. Then, a low hum. Energy. A door opened in the ground. She stepped inside. It was dark at first, but then dim lights flickered on, revealing a hidden bunker beneath the ruins. She moved slowly, her blaster ready. Echoes followed her steps. Then a voice. "You came." She turned fast, gun aimed, but no one was there. "Show yourself," she shouted. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Not entirely human, not fully alien. Tall, strong, wrapped in armor, but unmasked. His face was scarred, one eye glowing faint red. It was him. General Kor. Alive. Alira didn't hesitate. She fired. The blast hit his chest, but the energy faded against his armor. "Wait," he said, raising one hand. "If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have made it this far." She kept her weapon up, her jaw tight. "How are you alive?" "They lied," he said simply. "Your leaders, my empire, everyone lied." "About what?" "About the war. About me. About the reason this started." He stepped back and pressed a button on the wall. A screen lit up. Video files. Old ones. Images of Kor saving human civilians. Protecting hybrid children, standing up to other Varkari commanders. "This can't be real," Alira whispered. "You were shown what they wanted you to see," Kor said. "I was not your enemy. I tried to stop what was coming, but they needed a face, a villain. They chose me." "Who's they?" He looked at her. "A group that controls both your kind and mine." The Eclipsed Kor. Alira had heard that name before, in rumors. A secret group of powerful beings who created wars to keep balance. Or chaos. "Why now?" she asked. "Why reveal this now?" "Because they think I'm dead. And you're the only one who might believe the truth." Why me? He stepped closer. Because you saw me, up close in battle, and you knew something was wrong. She lowered her weapon slightly. What do you want from me? Help me expose them. She shook her head. They'll kill us both. Yes, Kor said. But if we do nothing, they'll kill many more. Alira looked around the room. Screens, recordings, logs, all pointing to a much bigger truth. Everything she believed, everything she fought for was now in question. Finally, she said, Then we start here, tonight. Show me everything. Kor nodded. Outside, the stars continued to shine. Silent witnesses to the new alliance forming below, human and the enemy she once thought she had killed. But the real war, was only just beginning. The mask begins to speak. The bunker was cold. Not because of the air, but because of the truth hidden within its walls. Captain Alira stood in front of the glowing screen, her eyes moving from one file to the next. The videos showed Kor, during the war, protecting civilians, arguing with other Varkari officers, even warning a council of unknown leaders about something he called the Dark Return. None of this matched the monster she thought she had killed. Kor stood behind her silent, letting the files speak for themselves. Why haven't you shown this before? She finally asked. I tried, he said. Many times. But both our governments blocked the truth. The resistance leaders used your pain. The Empire used fear. Neither side wanted peace. War made them powerful. Alira turned slowly. You expect me to believe you're some kind of hero? No, Kor said. I was cruel, I followed orders. I believed the lies until I saw them with my own eyes. Until they turned on me too. Alira stared at him, trying to find a crack in his words. He was still her enemy, still dangerous, but his voice held something new. Regret. What is the Dark Return? She asked. Kor's face darkened. A force older than both our species. The eclipsed Kor didn't just control us, they were preparing the galaxy for something. Something worse. Something that feeds on war. What is it? She pressed. I don't know its true name, he admitted. But I've seen its signs. When planets fall silent. When minds change. When good soldiers do evil without knowing why. Alira frowned. Mind control? More like infection, Kor said. Ideas that aren't yours. Anger that isn't natural. Whole armies turning. Not just violent, but empty. Like shadows wearing armor. She remembered something from the battlefield. A moment when her squad had changed. Gone silent, eyes glazed, movements strange. They had blamed it on stress. Now she wasn't sure. So, how do we stop it? She asked. Kor opened a panel on the wall. Inside was a small black device shaped like a cube, pulsing with soft blue light. This holds the original orders from the eclipsed Kor, he said. Plans, maps, experiments, the truth. Then let's take it to command, Alira said. They won't listen, Kor replied. They'll destroy it. And you. She hated that he might be right. Then what's the plan? We wake. Up the galaxy, he said. Piece by piece. He gave her the cube. This is just the beginning. They left the bunker before sunrise. Alira covered her face with her hood. Kor wore old armor with no markings. They traveled on foot through the outer ruins until they reached a silent transport depot. As they entered the dusty terminal, Alira felt a chill. Something was wrong. They moved carefully through the building. The lights were dim, signs flickered. Machines sat silent. Then they heard it. A sound, metal scratching. Slow. Steady. Alira raised her blaster. Kor drew his blade. They turned a corner and froze. A soldier stood there, resistance uniform, but his eyes were glowing white. His face was blank, like a puppet. Behind him, 3 more appeared. Stand down, Alira said. They didn't move. Instead, they whispered one word all at once. Traitor. Then they attacked. The fight was brutal. Fast. Alira dodged the first blast, fired back, hitting one soldier in the leg, Kor took another down with a sharp strike. But the puppets didn't scream, didn't bleed normally. Something was wrong inside them. "They're not human anymore," Kor shouted. "Get to the control tower." They ran through broken glass and shattered walls, climbed old stairs, and reached the top room. Kor sealed the door behind them. "What were those things?" Alira asked, panting. "Infected," he said. "They've already started. The dark return is spreading." Alira placed the cube on the console. She connected it to the tower's systems. Data flooded the screen. Maps, names, frequencies, and something else. A list. A list of humans and Varkari chosen for manipulation. Their minds slowly changed over. Time through signals and hidden codes, and on that list was her name. Alira stepped back, stunned. "They were going to use me." "Not anymore," Kor said. Just then a voice echoed through the room. It wasn't his. It came from the cube. Female. Cold. Familiar. "Captain Alira," it said. "You were always meant to lead, to control, not to question." Alira turned to the cube. "Who are you?" "We are the Eclipsed Core. We shaped your war. We shaped your heroes. And we are not done." "You've infected our soldiers," she said. "We'll stop you." The voice laughed. "You can try, but the infection is not in the body. It's in the belief, and belief spreads faster than any weapon." Then the cube shut down. Kor looked at her. "They know we're coming." Alira nodded. "Good. Let them be afraid for once." They downloaded what they could and escaped through the emergency exit before more puppets arrived. Back at the resistance base, Alira returned quietly. No one noticed her missing. No one knew what she had discovered. That night she placed the cube on her table and stared at it. It no longer glowed, but its voice still echoed in her mind. Belief spreads faster than any weapon. She understood. Now the war was never about land or species. It was about control of the mind. And the mask she once wore, the face of her enemy, was not his at all. It was the mask they gave him. And now, they wanted to give her one too. But Alira had made her choice. She would fight. Not just for Earth, not just for victory, but for the truth. And the war for truth was only just beginning. Truth written in fire. The next day, Captain Alira walked through the resistance base like a ghost. Soldiers nodded at her, not knowing what she had seen, what she now knew. Her eyes scanned each face, wondering who among them had been infected, who had already fallen under the Eclipsed Core's control. She moved past the mess hall, past the briefing rooms until she reached a quiet storage room near the back of the base. There she opened a hidden panel and placed the black cube inside a locked case. It no longer pulsed, but she could feel its presence like a storm waiting to break. Just as she turned to leave, a voice called out, "You've changed." It was Commander Rain. He stood at the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "You disappeared," he said, "and now you're hiding things." Alira forced a calm smile. "I needed space. The war." "Don't lie to me," Rain interrupted. "I saw the reports. A transport depot was attacked last night. There were bodies. Strange ones." Her heart skipped. "You think I did it?" "No," he said. "I think you found something, and now you're afraid to share it." Alira hesitated. Should she tell him the truth? About Kor? About the infected soldiers? About the voice in the cube? She decided to test him. "Do you believe the war is really over?" she asked. Rain blinked. "What kind of question is that? Just answer it." He sighed. "We won. Kor is dead. The Empire is shattered. Of course it's over." She nodded slowly. "Then you don't see it?" He narrowed his eyes. "See what?" "The fire's still burning, Rain," she said quietly. "We just haven't looked in the right direction." Then she walked away. That night she slipped out again. Not to meet Kor this time, but to visit someone else. Deep in the outer colony, far from the base, there was an old communication facility. It had once served as a listening post before the war made it useless. Now it was forgotten. Inside lived Dr. Malen, a former scientist who had vanished from the Resistance 2 years ago. Most thought he was dead, but Core's files said otherwise. Elira found him hunched over an old transmitter surrounded by data screens and blinking lights. He looked up, surprised. "You're not a ghost," he said. "Neither are you," she replied. He smiled sadly. "What brings the hero of the Resistance to my dead doorstep?" She pulled out a data drive and placed it on his table. "I need you to read this." Dr. Malin plugged in the drive. As the data loaded, his eyes widened. This is real?" "Yes," Elira said. "And it's only part of what we found." He studied the files. Maps of secret facilities, brain pattern research, mind signal experiments. This changes everything," he whispered. "These aren't just tools for war. These are tools for control. This is how you bend entire populations without them knowing." Elira nodded. "They've already started." Malin leaned back. "We need proof. Live samples, experiments, recordings. We can't expose this with files alone." She looked at him. "Can you help me?" "Yes," he said. "But we need access to one of their sites. One still active." The next night, Elira returned to the ruins where she first met Core. He was waiting by the edge of a cliff, watching the sky. When he saw her, he nodded once. "You've found your truth," he said. "No," she replied. "Just more lies to burn through." She told him about Dr. Malin, about the need for live proof. Core hesitated. "I know of one site, an old research station once run by the eclipsed Core, hidden beneath a broken moon. They thought it was destroyed during the war." "And it's still running?" she asked. "If the infection is spreading, yes." They left that same night. Elira, Core, and Dr. Malin boarded a stolen stealth ship and headed toward the dead moon. As they approached, the ship passed through clouds of debris. Broken satellites floated like bones in space. The surface of the moon was cracked, but when they scanned deeper, they saw it, a faint energy signature below the surface. The station was alive. They landed in silence. Inside the station, the walls were smooth, silver, cold. Strange symbols pulsed on panels. The air felt heavy. Wrong. They moved slowly, weapons ready. Then they heard the whispers. Faint voices. Not in any language they knew, but filled with pain, fear, and something darker. They entered the first lab. Inside were tanks filled with a strange fluid. Floating in it, humans and Varkari. Not dead. Not alive. Their eyes open, mouths moving, skin pale. "They're connected," Malin whispered. "Linked to something beyond this place. Hive mind," Core muttered. "But controlled from somewhere else." Suddenly, alarms blared. They had been seen. Doors slammed shut. Red lights flashed. Security systems activated. They fought their way through corridors, lasers, machines, drones. Finally, they reached the central control room. There, Elira found it, the core processor, and inside it, dozens of files, conversations, brainwave tests, field experiments, and a full list of infected commanders. Some names were still active in her resistance base. Rain's name was there. So was her own. "They plan to replace us," Elira said. "Turn us into puppets." "Not just you," Malin added. "This plan, it's galaxy-wide." Elira pulled out a data spike and began copying everything. Just then, a deep voice echoed through the room. "You were warned." It was the eclipsed Core, not a single voice but many, layered together. "You saw your enemy in a mirror, but you never saw yourself." Elira looked at the glowing screen. "We see now," she said, "and we're not afraid." "You will be," the voice replied, "when you learn what's coming." Then the lights died. The station began to shake. "They're collapsing it," Malin shouted. "We have to go." They ran, escaping just before the station exploded behind them. Back on their ship, Elira looked at the data drive. It was hot, buzzing with power. This was their weapon now. Not a bomb, not a gun, but truth. And truth was fire, hunted by her own. 3 days had passed since Captain Alira, Kor, and Dr. Malen escaped the moon base with the truth. The data they carried was explosive. Names, experiments, secret orders, proof that the war had been a lie, that minds were being manipulated, that entire populations were being twisted into weapons by a hidden force called the Eclipsed Core. But now, truth came at a price. They were no longer heroes. They were targets. The resistance base was different when Alira returned. Soldiers avoided her eyes. Whispers followed her footsteps. Doors closed when she approached. Something had changed, and not by accident. She stepped into the command hall and found Commander Rain standing at the center, flanked by armed guards. He smiled. But it was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "Welcome back, Captain," he said. "You've been busy." Alira kept her voice calm. "You've seen the reports, then?" "Oh, we've seen more than that," he replied. "We've seen recordings, security logs, private transmissions. Seems you've been working with a war criminal." "Kor was never the real enemy," she said firmly. "You've been lied to. We all have." "You betrayed your oath," Rain said, his voice sharper now. "You left your post, allied with an alien, stole resistance property, and now you stand here accusing us of being blind?" She took a step forward. "No. I'm accusing you of being infected." Gasps filled the room. Rain froze for a moment, then let out a quiet laugh. "You think I've been corrupted? You think I'm one of them?" Alira nodded. "I've seen the data. I've seen the list. Your name is on it." His face twisted, not in shock, but in cold amusement. "Then maybe," he said, "you shouldn't have come back." He raised his hand. The guards moved. Alira reacted instantly, throwing a smoke device to the floor. The room filled with gray mist as blaster fire rang out. She ducked, rolled, and slipped through a side door. Running through the halls, she tapped, her earpiece. "Kor, Malin, I'm compromised. Rain's infected. They're hunting me." "We're moving," Kor replied. "Rendezvous at Fallback Point Echo." The fallback point was an abandoned shelter outside the colony walls, buried under rubble. Kor and Malen arrived first, waiting in the dark. When Alira reached them, her uniform was scorched and her lip was bleeding. "They're not just suspicious anymore," she said. "They've made me a traitor." "They'll rewrite everything," Malin warned. "They'll call you a spy, erase your records, make you disappear." Then we hit back before they can," Kor said. Alira took out the data drive and held it tight. "We still have the truth, and it's time we use it." The plan was dangerous. They would hack into the Resistance's primary broadcast tower, the same tower used during the war to coordinate attacks and share news across human colonies. It was now tightly secured, controlled by high command. But if they could get in, they could show the entire galaxy the truth. The infection. The experiments. The plans for mind control. It would no longer be a secret war. It would be a public one. Getting in was not easy. They approached under cover of night, dressed as maintenance workers. Malin carried a case filled with tools, but inside was a device he built from old tech, an amplifier, powerful enough to override the broadcast system for a few minutes. A few minutes would be enough. As they entered the outer gates, a patrol stopped them. "Identification," said the guard. Alira kept her head down, voice steady. "Team 16, tower calibration." The guard scanned the ID chip Malen had forged. It blinked green. "Clear. Proceed." They passed through without looking back. Once inside the tower, they climbed to the top floor, where the central node was kept. Every second counted. They broke the lock, entered the room, and connected the amplifier. "We're in," Malen said. "Uploading now." Alira looked out the window. She could see the colony lights below. Thousands of people living under a lie. People she had once sworn to protect. This was for them. Kor stood beside the door, sword in hand. "We'll hold them off as long as we can." The broadcast started, across dozens of colonies, across every screen, every terminal. A signal appeared, a voice spoke. Alira's voice. "This is Captain Alira of the Resistance. If you're hearing this, you've been lied to. Images followed, screens showing infected soldiers, brain experiments, documents signed by members of the eclipsed Corps, even the recordings of Corps saving civilians. Our war was a game to them, she said. A tool. They used our anger, they shaped our enemies, but now we see the truth, and it's time you saw it too. The signal was raw, real, unfiltered. Millions saw it, and the world began to change. But not without a price. They heard the boots first. Dozens of soldiers stormed the tower. Kor stood in the doorway, sword ready. Go, he told Alira. Get Malen and run. Not without you. You will, he said. Because this isn't about me anymore. It never was. He kissed her forehead, just for a second, and then turned. Go. Alira ran, with Malen. By her side, she descended the tower's back shaft, through emergency tunnels and out into the night. Behind them, the sky lit up with fire as the tower's power system overloaded. They reached a safe zone by morning. By then, the news had spread. Some resistance soldiers began questioning orders. Some leaders went silent. Protests broke out. Underground channels shared the video. People demanded answers. The truth once hidden had taken root. And yet, as Alira sat beside a broken wall watching the sunrise, she felt no peace. He stayed behind, she whispered. Malen nodded. He knew what it meant. He was never my enemy. No, Malen said softly, but now he's their enemy more than ever. Alira looked at the sky, where the tower once stood. Kor was gone. But the war was far from over. The enemy, she never knew. The sun rose red the next morning, bleeding across the broken skyline. Alira stood alone on a rocky hill, staring at the smoldering remains of the broadcast tower in the distance. Smoke curled into the clouds. Debris still fell like snow. Somewhere in that fire, Kor had vanished. She closed her eyes. You said you weren't my enemy, she whispered. But you fought for me until the end. Behind her, Dr. Malin approached quietly, carrying a cracked transmitter. We picked up a signal, he said. She turned quickly. From the tower? He nodded. It was weak, broken, but it had a timestamp from 3 hours ago. Alira's heart skipped. It's him, isn't it? Malen handed her the device. She pressed play. Static. Broken code. Then, a voice. Captain, if this reaches you, and I'm not dead, but I can't return. They've taken me to the Black Hall. You must finish what we started. The message ended. Alira clenched her jaw. Kor was alive. But now he was a prisoner of the enemy she had only just begun to understand. The Black Hall was a myth, a place whispered in old resistance logs, blamed for disappearances, silent missions, and erased records. No one knew where it was. Some didn't even believe it existed. But Malen had an idea. He brought Alira to a hidden archive buried in a forgotten part of the colony, deep beneath the ruins of an old Varkari temple. There, in a chamber carved from black stone, they found it. Coordinates. Old data logs. References to something called Project Silence. The Black Hall isn't a building, Malen explained. It's a station, orbiting just beyond the dead zone of the galactic core, a place outside time. They send people there to disappear. Then that's where we go, Alira said. You won't survive alone, he warned. This place, it's not just guarded, it's cursed. She nodded. Then we don't go alone. They needed help, but not from the resistance. They had to go deeper, to those who lived in the cracks between worlds. Smugglers, mercenaries, exiled commanders, the forgotten. Alira tracked them down across war-torn moons and old battle zones, offering them one thing no one else had: truth. She played the broadcast. She showed them the files, and one by one they joined her, not because they believed in peace, but because they were tired of being lied to. By the end of the week, Alira had built a team. 6 of them. A silent Varkari sniper named Jen, who had lost her squad in an accidental friendly fire mission. A human pilot named Dax, once a famous racer, now hiding from war crimes he didn't commit. A tech expert known only as Ash, who spoke through a voice box and had cybernetic eyes, and two others, former Eclipse agents who had escaped the Corps' control. Their names erased, their minds still fractured. They called themselves the Broken Stars. And they would do what armies could not: infiltrate the Black Hall. The journey took them through unstable wormholes, across gravity rifts, and past defense systems older than the war itself. Finally, through a thick red nebula, they saw it: the Black Hall. A floating station made of dark stone and steel, shaped like a spiral that never ended. It spun slowly, like a wound that never healed. They docked in silence. Elira led the team through narrow corridors, their weapons ready, faces tense. Every shadow felt like it watched them. The walls were lined with strange symbols. Not human, not Varkari, something older. And then they saw them. Guards, not soldiers, not alive. Their eyes glowed white, their movements smooth, too perfect. Infected, Jen whispered. Elira nodded. Don't let them touch you. They moved fast, room by room, system by system. Ash hacked the doors. Dax planted disruptors. The others held the line. Deep inside, they reached the prisoner core, and there, behind a glass cell covered in symbols, stood Core, weakened, bleeding, but alive. He looked up and smiled. You came, he said. Elira pressed her hand to the glass. I told you, this war isn't over until we win. They broke the locks and pulled him free. But the alarm sounded. A voice filled the station. You came this far, to die in the dark. It was the eclipsed Core. Their voice. Many voices echoed. From every wall, you were never meant to rise, they said. You are dust forgotten. We are the fire that keeps order. Elira raised her weapon. You're just cowards hiding behind lies. We are what comes after lies, the voice replied. You cannot kill an idea. No, she said, but I can burn it. Ash activated the disruptor. The station trembled. Doors burst open. Infected guards swarmed in. A battle exploded. Blaster fire, blades, fire and smoke. Jen took out snipers from the ceiling. Dax flew overhead in a stolen drone, blasting corridors. The Broken Stars fought like they had nothing to lose, and Core, despite his wounds, picked up a fallen blade and stood beside Elira once more. Back to back. They fought like storm and thunder. They reached the control core of the Black Hall. Inside was a machine unlike anything they had seen. A mind furnace, built to rewrite memories, control thoughts, and erase identity. Thousands of voices screamed from it. Trapped minds. This is the heart, Malen said. Destroy it, and we stop them. Elira placed the last charge. As they ran for the exit, the eclipsed core spoke one last time. You've opened the door, it said. And what comes next is beyond you. But Elira didn't look back. She pressed the detonator, and the Black Hall died in fire. They escaped just in time. From space, they watched the spiral station collapse inward, then vanish into a silent explosion. The voices were gone. For now. Back at their hidden base, Elira patched up Core's wounds. You saved me, he whispered. No, she said. We saved each other. He looked at her with tired eyes. They'll strike back. Then we'll be ready. She turned to the others. The Broken Stars. A new resistance. Not built on fear, but built on truth. Unmasking the future. The Black Hall was gone, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. Captain Elira watched the stars from the command deck of the hidden base. The sky looked calm, peaceful. But beneath that calm, a storm was building. The Broken Stars, her small team of rebels, had struck the heart of the enemy. They had exposed the truth, freed Core from the depths of darkness, and destroyed a machine that was erasing minds. But the eclipsed Core wasn't defeated. It was wounded, and wounded beasts are the most dangerous. News of the Black Hall's fall had spread like wildfire. Underground networks, rogue broadcasters, old war veterans, all began to talk. The Resistance Council tried to bury the story. They called it a terrorist act. They called Alira and Core fugitives. They called the truth a virus. But people had seen the broadcast. They had seen the files. They had seen Core, the supposed monster, fighting beside a human. Questions began to rise, and questions became sparks. Across the colonies, soldiers refused orders. Varkari camps opened their gates to human refugees, and in the deep core, even some Eclipse agents began to vanish from their posts. Fear was shifting. The old story was breaking, and a new one was about to be written. Alira stood before her team. The broken stars had grown. More had joined. Freedom fighters, exiles, scientists, former Eclipse servants who had broken their chains. Now, they had a fleet. Small, scattered, underarmed, but United Core stepped beside her, his scars now symbols of survival, not shame. "They'll strike soon," he said. "They always do when control slips." "Then we give them a reason to strike," Alira replied. "And when they do, we show the galaxy who they really are." Malin activated a display. A map of the galaxy lit up, showing red zones, places still under the Core's control. "We don't have the weapons to face them head-on," he said. "But if we can trigger enough rebellions, we break their network. We don't need to destroy everything," Alira said. "We just need to break their story." They called the plan Operation Echo because it wasn't just about attacks. It was about voices. Across 7 systems, they planted data bursts. Short messages, raw proof, simple truths. Each sent to the right people at the right time. A mother who lost her son to the Core's labs. A general whose orders no longer made sense. A child who had seen something she wasn't supposed to. And when those people shared the truth, the echoes began. On the planet Yedra, a resistance officer refused to fire on a Varkari camp and instead turned his weapon on his own infected commander. On Station Zerith, engineers locked down the control core and began broadcasting Alira's message to every nearby ship. On the mining moon of Aaron 4, workers overthrew their Eclipse supervisors and raised the old rebel flag. It was no longer just a fight. It was a movement. But movements draw fire. The Eclipsed core struck back. Hard. Their infected fleets moved fast, wiping out rebel outposts, hunting those who had spoken the truth. They targeted symbols. They targeted hope. And finally, they came for Alira. The final battle came not on a battlefield but above the skies of Taraxis, a neutral moon where both humans and Varkari had once met to discuss peace. Alira's fleet arrived first, orbiting the gray-blue planet in silence. Core stood beside her, suited in a new kind of armor, half human tech, half Varkari forge. "They're coming," he said, watching the scanners. "Then let them," Alira said. Below them, the people of Taraxis watched. Civilians, farmers, retired soldiers. They had heard the message. They had chosen to shelter the broken stars. The Core wanted to make an example out of them. Alira planned to make history instead. The Core's fleet arrived. Black ships, silent, cold, deadly. They outnumbered the rebels 10-1. On the bridge, Malin turned to Alira. "We can't win this with fire." "We're not going to," she said. She stepped in front of the broadcast panel and went live to the whole galaxy. "You've heard their lies," she said. "You've seen their crimes. Now watch what they do when people stand together." Behind her, the screen showed live footage of the people on Taraxis, unarmed, standing beneath the ships. "They want you afraid," she continued. "They want you silent, but today we say no." She stepped aside and let the people speak. A young girl stepped forward on the screen. "My brother disappeared," she said. "They told us he ran, but we found him in a tank. I'm not afraid anymore." A retired Varkari war leader spoke next. "They called us enemies, but they were the poison." One by one, the people told their truths. The broadcast spread, and the Core hesitated. Their ships hovered, their guns aimed. But they did not fire for the first time in a generation. They were losing the narrative. And then, one of their ships turned, a captain who had seen too much. He joined Alira's side, then another, and another, until half the fleet broke rank. The eclipse had begun to fall. A week later, the core collapsed. Not with explosions, but with silence. Their leaders vanished. Their labs were found. And the minds they once controlled were freed. Alira stood on the surface of Taraxis. Beside her were Kor, Malen, the broken stars, and thousands more. She no longer wore a uniform, she no longer needed one. Someone handed her the mask she had once taken from Kor, the cold silver mask she had once paraded like a trophy. She looked at it, then held it up before the crowd. This, she said, was never his face. She threw it to the ground. It was the mask of a lie. And we don't need it anymore. The crowd cheered, not for a hero, but for each other, for truth, for unity, for a new beginning. In the days that followed, old governments fell. New councils were formed, Joint Human and Varkari. Kor helped rebuild the Varkari homeworld. Alira helped train new peacekeepers. Malen led the recovery teams into what remained of the Kor's hidden labs and the broken stars. They didn't fade. They became a symbol of resistance, of fire, of hope. Because some wars are not won with weapons. They are won with voices, and in the end, it was not death that unmasked the future. It was truth. The end.